So this is the S22 Ultra versus the Pixel 7 Pro. In this video I want to talk about them and see how they compare and maybe help you decide which one you should be getting if you're on the fence between these two, or if you already have the S22 Ultra, should you make the switch to the Pixel 7 Pro? Let's go ahead and talk about them. As far as the design and the hardware, honestly, both of them look very nice. It's definitely going to be a subjective choice between which one you think looks nicer. The S22 Ultra does have the lenses just popping out of the back of the phone versus the Pixel 7 Pro. It does have a camera visor, so when you put them on the table, the Pixel 7 Pro isn't going to rock at all. The Pixel 7's design is rounded all around the frame, the edges, the back. It's rounded, so it does lead to a pretty comfortable feeling device if you're not using any kind of case or anything like that. But it does lead to a decent amount of fingerprints because it is a glossy finish. So I just still end up using a case all the time, or at minimum, I'll recommend a skin. On the S22 Ultra, you do have a matte back, so there is less chances of you picking up fingerprints if you're not using a case, but it still is a slippery device. And it's got a note-like design where the top and the bottom sides are flat, and then the edges on the sides are rounded, so it does lead to the corners being a bit sharp for my liking. So some people may not mind it, but for me, I find that it just feels a little bit sharp in your palm when you're using it. But like I said, I always use a case on both devices. I just don't want to scratch them up or break them very easily. I already have a couple scuffs on the S22 Ultra on the lenses themselves. Same thing with the Pixel 7 Pro. It's got some scratches on the visor, so I just want to keep them as clean as possible as long as I can, and also, just protect them and give them a little bit more of a grippier feel. Both devices are IP68 water and dust resistant rated, so if you get splashed by water, I personally use them in the shower, so I have no issue there. Both of them have USB-C at the bottom and dual firing speakers, and for just watching content and using it for social media and stuff like that, I think both of them sound pretty good. I don't think they sound amazing, but they're not terrible either. Both of them also have the SIM card slot, so if you need a SIM card, you'll at least have it on both devices, where the S22 Ultra will have it at the bottom, and the Pixel 7 Pro will have it on the side. And both of them also have the volume rocker and the power button on the same side. The power buttons are actually pretty much at the exact same spot if you put them side to side, but the volume rocker is above the power button on the S22 Ultra, and the volume rocker is below the power button on the Pixel 7 Pro. So if you've ever used either of these devices and you're used to one being above or below it, then it might be a little bit weird once you switch to it, because you might be accidentally hitting the volume rocker instead of the power button and vice versa. So up to you to decide if that's going to be annoying or not. It can be annoying to me because when I'm switching between them, I can kind of just accidentally hit the wrong button, but over time you definitely get used to it. You also have the S Pen available on the S22 Ultra, which if you're an S Pen user now, then you know what you're about, and you likely will prefer this device over the Pixel 7 Pro because of this. But if you've never used an S Pen before and you're thinking, would I ever take advantage of it or even use it? There are some cool features that may benefit you. So for one, you can definitely take notes with this device. So if you like to take notes, like physical handwritten notes, then this will be convenient for you. You can also use it to take like screenshots and precise screenshots. So if you ever need to take a little small screenshot of something particular on your screen, then you can do that easily with the S Pen. You can also use it for Bluetooth features. So you can use it to swipe around with some air gestures, or you can use it as a shutter when you're using it for the camera. Only time I ever use the S Pen is if I'm using it to click out on an X button on an ad, because sometimes they're very tiny and with my fat finger I'll miss it or something like that. So otherwise, that's really the only other times I use it, but it's still pretty cool if you ever need an S Pen or any kind of stylus with you during your day-to-day. As far as the displays, both of them are going to have a 1440p 120Hz AMOLED display. On the S22 Ultra, it is a 6.8-inch display versus on the Pixel 7 Pro, it is a 6.7-inch display. So the S22 Ultra is just a little bit taller and just a little bit wider, but honestly, both of them are big displays and great displays in my opinion for watching a ton of content. They both get plenty bright enough, they both get plenty sharp enough, good quality, good color. I think the S22 Ultra just adds a little bit more vividness to it, but besides that, both of them honestly look really good for consuming a lot of content. And both of them have minimum intrusion, so small camera cutout, bezels are pretty minimum. If anything, the S22 Ultra just has slightly thinner bezels at the top and at the bottom, and they both have curved displays, so if not a fan of curved displays, then you might find both of them annoying. The only annoying thing is that you can't really install a cheap tempered glass screen protector. Most tempered glass screen protectors for these kind of displays are pretty expensive. Otherwise, you have to use like a TPU Flex plasticky feeling display or protector. Not a fan of those, so I always avoid them. But otherwise, both displays are going to be very good in my opinion, so whichever one you have, you're going to get a great experience on both of them. As far as the biometrics, both of them have a fingerprint sensor and also facial recognition, but the S22 Ultra does have an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor versus an optical one on the Pixel 7 Pro. Both of them honestly work pretty well for me. I would find that both of them get me in pretty quickly and recognize me about 98-99% of the time. There are some times where I'll just tap the device and the Pixel 7 Pro will struggle a little bit, but besides that, I really haven't had much of an issue with the Pixel 7 Pro. With the S22 Ultra, same deal. I honestly haven't had much of an issue, and both of them get me into the device pretty quickly. As far as facial recognition, I found that the S22 Ultra is more likely to recognize me in lower light situations versus the Pixel 7 Pro that sometimes struggles when there's not a lot of light in the room. But I do like that there's a feature that the Pixel 7 Pro will keep my notifications locked until it recognizes my face, even though it may not be the most secure, which both of them may not be super secure, but I still like that there's a feature available there. As far as performance, I am in the US, so the S22 Ultra is going to have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 with 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. If you're from Europe or if you get the base model, you will get either 8 gigabytes of RAM or the Exynos version. On the Pixel 7 Pro, it is going to have the new Google Tensor chip Gen 2 with 12 gigabytes of RAM, and it's also the 256 gigabyte storage model, which basically means, honestly, I think both of them provide you with decent performance, and for most people, you're going to have no issue on either devices. And now, if you're a heavy, intensive user, I feel like you might be better off going with the S22 Ultra, just because it may handle the heat a little bit better compared to the Pixel 7 Pro's heat management. I find that it sometimes is inconsistent. Sometimes it'll get warm from basic usage, but most of the time it's fine. But then sometimes it'll get warm from heavy intensive usage, which is kind of expected, but then sometimes it's also fine. So I don't know why sometimes it gets hot when sometimes it doesn't. And I wouldn't say it gets too hot to the point that it's like uncomfortable feeling, but it gets to the point that you can actually feel it through a case, which at that point, that's when I think it's pretty warm. The S22 Ultra can definitely, you can feel it a little bit through the case sometimes, but most of the time, you'll only really feel the heat when you don't use the case. But besides that, both of them, like I said, will get the job done for pretty much everything you throw at them. Even though the phones may get warm, they'll still consistently perform for the most part. I find that both of them eventually will come across some like hiccups in the animations or bugginess when you're closing out apps or opening apps, but it still feels relatively smooth on both of them overall and gets the performance done. Occasionally you will come across like some bugs where the phone will just completely crash or freeze on you. I found one the other day when I was actually filming B-roll for the S22 Ultra. It was just for some reason just bugging out when I took the S Pen out. It just brought up the S Pen menu and it just froze. So I don't know what was going on, but you will encounter some kind of bugs every now and then on both of them. Honestly, the Pixel 7 Pro is not as bad as it was last year. The bugginess on Android 13 last year or 12 last year, it was awful. But now it's not too bad. But both of them are great overall, but still will have some kind of bugs every now and then. As far as phone connections and service and stuff like that, I did come across a couple of times where the Pixel 7 Pro, when I turned my Wi-Fi off or I switched from Wi-Fi to my data, it wouldn't connect. It would say I had some data, but it wouldn't actually be connected. So I would have to turn the Wi-Fi on and off, or the data on and off, or sometimes just completely restart the device, which was a little bit annoying. Versus the S22 Ultra, never had any kind of issue, but at least both of them do have 5G if that's something that's important to you. And tying in the software of the performance, both of them are going to have a version of Android. Currently, right now, the S22 Ultra for me still has Android 12 or One UI 4.1, and then the Pixel 7 Pro currently has Android 13. So if you want the latest version of Android first, then you might want to consider getting a Pixel. But just because you get the latest version of Android doesn't mean you're going to have the newest and coolest features, because sometimes the S22 Ultra or just Samsung in general with One UI, they pack a ton of features into their updates so that by the time Android natively installs a certain feature, Samsung might already have that feature for quite a while because they had it on One UI. But either way, I think both of them will provide you with a great experience, and you're going to have to look for the specific stuff of what you prefer, because some things are similar, but then most other things are vastly different. So what's the same is going to be the Google ecosystem stuff. So if you have Google devices, both of them can connect to both devices pretty easily. So Google Messages, Google Duo, Nearby Share, and Find My with the Google Network. All that stuff works pretty well on both devices. And on top of that, you also have Samsung's ecosystem, which some devices and some apps do work on the Pixel 7 Pro, but in some of them don't. So for example, one of the apps I rely on the most is Samsung Notes, which is now my fault because I shouldn't have used Samsung Notes from the beginning. But I have a lot of my notes in Samsung Notes, so now I can't access them on the Pixel 7 Pro. So I'm trying to switch to a different Notes app to get all my notes into one cloud ecosystem that I can access on any device. But there's some apps, like I said, that do work, such as Samsung Internet. I don't know, I prefer that browser app for some reason, so I've been using Samsung Internet sometimes on the Pixel series phones. But then there's also devices that may work or may not work. So earbuds, tablets, watches do work in connection with the Pixel 7 Pro, but there's some features that may not be available, such as being able to share the clipboard or being able to quickly switch between devices with earbuds just because they use your Samsung account. You can connect Samsung watches easily. You can also connect your tablets with your phone so your messages go to your tablet as well using the Google Messages app. So there are some things that work between both of them with the Samsung ecosystem, and then some things that only work well or work with a Samsung device. So you have to think about, do you want the extra ecosystem? And if you do, then you might want to consider a Samsung device, because Google, all that stuff, all Google devices work relatively well on a Samsung device. But then getting into the customization of each OS, honestly, the S22 Ultra just kills the Pixel here. There's so many more features available on the S22 Ultra over the Pixel 7 Pro. Everything from the always on display customization, the lock screen customization, the home screen customization. You can move apps truly anywhere. Whereas on the Pixel 7 Pro, you have the option of turning on the always on display. You have the option of making the clock bigger or not, or how you want your notifications to look. But then you also only have the option of moving apps anywhere but at the at a glance widget. The at a glance widget is stuck there. You can't take it away. You can't disable it. You can't remove it. Or you can't place apps next to it. It's just there. It's useful. Actually, don't get me wrong. It's useful. I like it. But the ability or the freedom to move it is not there, which is what Android is known for. And on top of that, you can even download Good Lock on the S22 Ultra, which adds even more features, more customization to your OS. So if you want more freedom, more customization, then go for the S22 Ultra. But some people may not want that. Some people just want a device that works for them and just is simple, easy to understand. Like, for example, my parents. They don't need all these extra features. They don't need a launcher that has so much stuff that sometimes it causes the animations to slow down or feel a little bit choppy. They just want something that works really well and is smooth and is fast and it's simple to understand and not many features available, which is fine to them. That's my parents. They have a Pixel 4a and a Pixel 6. They both love their devices because it's so easy to use. And that's something that some users might prefer. So if you want something that's simple but still Android, then I definitely would recommend the Pixel, because that stock experience is very easy to understand. So I've heard this before by a lot of other videos and reviewers that Pixel is honestly the iPhone of Android. And I have to agree with that. It's definitely simpler to understand, simpler to customize, and may not give you too many features, but that's okay for some users. If you want the most, then I would still go for the S22 Ultra. Personally, me, like, I would love the most. I want to be able to change up things how I want to. Even though I may not do it, just the idea or the fact that I know that at some point, if I ever need to do something, there's likely a setting that allows me to change something up to benefit me in my day-to-day. One UI of the S22 Ultra also has better multitasking capabilities. So for one, you can use picture-in-picture on both devices, so watch YouTube or some kind of video, and also browse another app at the same time. Both of them also have the ability to split the screen. It's easier to set up, in my opinion, on the S22 Ultra because you have the Edge Bar. The Edge Bar is another cool tool that Samsung has with One UI that basically allows you to hide it away and swipe it over, and then you have either apps or some other settings available to navigate when you're in the middle of another app. So just drag and drop one app on top of another app if you're already running an app, and you can set up a top and bottom split screen mode. On the Pixel 7 Pro, you have to go into the recent mode and then click on the app icon and then hit split the screen. But not all apps are optimized, so not all apps will have that option available. On the S22 Ultra, you can go into your settings and labs and force all the apps to be able to be put into this split screen or into multi-window mode. Because the S22 Ultra also has the ability to drag and drop windows to make it look like it's a Windows computer kind of. Personally, I don't ever use this. Maybe the only time I ever do this is to pull over and swipe and drop down the calculator. That's sometimes pretty convenient for a quick calculation without the calculator app taking up the whole screen. And some other cool features of One UI is you have Samsung DeX. Never use this, but if you ever want like a Windows-like interface, just plug your phone into a monitor, whether it be wireless or wired, and you get a desktop-like experience. You also have Secured Folder, which is basically in the name. It's a folder that's locked so you can hide away certain apps or certain files and stuff like that. And then on the Pixel 7 Pro, you have a decent amount of cool AI features, which I find these to be convenient for an average person. So some of these features include either dictation, if you're someone who likes to talk to your phone and translate it to text, then you're gonna like that because it's pretty accurate and pretty good at determining what you're saying, even if you're speaking pretty fast. You also have the ability to turn on language translation within the phone, so if you get messages from either relatives or someone or a friend that speaks a different language, you can translate it easily without you having to copy and paste it to a Google Translate app. But the best AI features are the phone features, that being either a hold for me, which I personally haven't had to use, but if I ever had to use it, it would be pretty convenient, which basically will hold the phone for you if you get put in like a waiting line or something like that until an actual human starts speaking. And also screen calling, which I rely on all the time. Basically, unknown numbers, spam calls, robot calls are no longer an issue for me because I just rely on this device to take care of them for me. So if it's an unknown number or a spam call number, the Google Assistant will answer for you, and in the background it'll just screen call them, and if it's an actual person, you can see a live transcription of what they're saying or what you want them to say. Even if you get a notification that someone's calling you and you don't know that number, just click the option of screen calling and you won't have to deal with talking to them. You just let the phone talk to that person for you, and if they decide to stay on the line, they can talk to the Google Assistant until you decide to actually pick up the phone, which is very cool. I just recently showed this to my dad, and when he saw that his phone had this feature, which he's had his phone for just about a year, and I guess it's my fault for not telling him, but once I showed him this feature, he said, this is going to change everything for me, because he's always talking about how he's so annoyed that he's getting all these spam calls, especially with the election coming up right now. There's a ton of spam calls going on, robot calls I should say. So he loves this feature now. He's so much happier now. He doesn't have to deal with random phone numbers calling him. I told him that I turned it off so that if an unknown number, like an actual real unknown number calls him, that it won't get screen called, just because sometimes you may not know that someone may get your number from someone else, so you actually might want to pick that phone up and not drive that person away or scare them away by having a Google Assistant answer. But either way, the screen calling feature is absolutely amazing. I don't think you have to be any kind of tech nerd or something like that to appreciate features like that. Like I said, my dad, 60 some years old now, he absolutely loves that feature. But overall, the software is definitely going to come down to what you think will benefit you the most. Will it be those AI features, or will it be the customization features, or maybe Samsung Dex or something like that? Definitely decide which one works best for you and which one would benefit you more in your day-to-day. If you're a slow-going person who doesn't really have time to spend too much time on their phone, then I would feel like the Pixel 7 Pro's features would definitely be a better experience for you, versus if you have all the time in the world to customize your device, then you might want to go with the S22 Ultra. But both of them will provide you with a decent amount of software support too, where the S22 Ultra will give you about 4 years of OS updates and 5 years of security updates. It's almost been a year now, so now it's -1 of years, versus the Pixel 7 Pro that'll give you about 3 years of OS updates and then 5 years of security updates, which is plenty enough time to get a good amount of life out of both devices. Now, talking about the cameras, I almost want to start now just showing you guys the photos and videos, because I hate talking about cameras, because I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the cameras. All I have to say about them is that they're both really good. So on the front, selfies look pretty good on both of them. I like that the S22 Ultra, I think, has a bigger sensor, so it's able to give you a natural bokeh effect, which looks nice, so you don't have to go into portrait mode and get that fake bokeh effect. But either way, I think both of them look pretty good. The S22 Ultra also is able to get a little bit closer to either your face or maybe a subject, just because it has autofocus on that front sensor, which is pretty nice. And video, both of them can record 4K. I shoot at 4K 30, so both of them look pretty good overall. I think it might be a little bit different in the color and maybe a little bit in the detail, but honestly, I don't care. They both look good. On the back, the main thing I notice is that the S22 Ultra does seem to look a little bit faker. When I say that, I mean a little bit more vivid, so it adds a little bit of unreal color in my opinion, because what I saw was not what the S22 Ultra took, versus the Pixel 7 Pro also adds some nice color and punch and vividness to it, but it's more closer to what I saw in real life, because the sky really wasn't as blue and not as green, and the grass wasn't as green, but it still was closer to what the S22 Ultra was taking a photo of. I don't know, maybe that's just me. That's really the main difference I noticed, was the color. The way they represented the photo was a little bit different on both of them, but either way, I think both of them took a pretty good quality shot. Both looked pretty detailed overall. Other notable things that I noticed is that the S22 Ultra's ultra-wide was a little bit easier to use when it came to the autofocus versus the Pixel 7 Pro's ultra-wide autofocus. So you are able to get a macro-like shot on both of them, but I felt like the S22 Ultra was just a little bit easier to use. And also the ultra wide is just a hair wider on the Pixel 7 Pro, that being a 0.5x versus a 0.6x on the S22 Ultra. And once you start to zoom in, the telephotos of the S22 Ultra and the periscope zoom of the S22 Ultra is outstanding in my opinion. So you're able to get from 3x with optical zoom all the way up to 100x digital zoom on the S22 Ultra, versus on the Pixel 7 Pro you're able to get from a 5x optical all the way to a 30x optical. But either way, I think both of them do a pretty good job when you're zooming in from like maybe 5 to 10x and even 30x. Both of them look pretty good overall. It's just a color difference that you'll see, that either the S22 Ultra will continue to be a little bit more vivid and a little bit exaggerated in the way the colors look, in my opinion. And I also will note that the Pixel 7 Pro's colors did feel like they shifted a little bit more throughout their own lenses. So I found that the ultra wide, the wide, and the telephoto sometimes didn't take the exact same colors. Same thing with the S22 Ultra, although I felt like it was just a little bit more consistent within itself versus the Pixel 7 Pro that just wasn't as consistent within itself. As far as video, the S22 Ultra can go up to 8K, but I shoot all my video in 4K, so it doesn't really matter to me. And honestly, I think the quality and color will be a little bit different as far as color, but quality-wise, I think both look pretty good. And it'll come down to which color you think looks nicer. I think the Pixel 7 Pro's colors look nicer with the more colorful skies, more greener greens and all that stuff. I think it looks relatively nice. And again, the detail about the same. And when you start to zoom in, both of them will cap out at a max of 20x, and you can definitely see a difference here in the detail, where the S22 Ultra I think looks better, where it's like a more softer detail, where it doesn't look too watercolor like, versus the Pixel 7 Pro. It looks a little bit rough with the detail, like it looks fake. Like like it actually looks like digital zoom, versus the S22 Ultra. It kind of looks a little bit on the optical zoom kind of style. I don't know if I'm describing it right or if I'm even making any kind of sense, but both of them can cap out at 20x of max zoom. In low light situations, and when I mean low light, I mean like pitch black situations, I was pretty impressed in both of them. They were able to get something out of complete black darkness. I did notice that the S22 Ultra looked a little bit greener for some reason versus the Pixel 7 Pro that was cooler and bluer. But either way, I was pretty impressed, and I absolutely love that the S22 Ultra can take some pretty cool moon shots. It was a hazy, cloudy night, and the S22 Ultra was still able to clear out the sky to get a nice moon shot, versus the Pixel 7 Pro. It looked a little bit hazy because of those clouds. For low light selfies, if you're in pitch black, I'm surprised the S22 Ultra was able to get a somewhat usable shot versus the Pixel. It looks terrible, but if you have some light, I would say both of them give you a pretty good usable shot. Both camera systems give you a ton of other features as well, but I won't get into them because I never really use them. So overall, for an average person who just wants a good camera system that you can whip out, point and shoot, take a video, take a photo, you're going to be happy on both of them. And if you want a cool party trick, then consider maybe the S22 Ultra, because you have the ability to zoom in to 100x. As far as battery life, both of them give you about a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. And with my usage, again, this may vary for everyone, I can definitely get both devices to last me all day. And if I'm being a little bit more heavier on them or using my phone more, then I would definitely have to charge by the afternoon, that being maybe around 7 or 8 p.m. But on my lighter days, like I said, I can end both devices with maybe 20 to 40% battery life, which is pretty good, but that's only with like maybe an hour or two, or maybe sometimes 3 hours of screen on time, which is not a lot for some people. So definitely will depend on your usage. I think for the average person, you likely will have to maybe charge a little bit before bedtime, and if for the heavy intensive people, you're definitely gonna have to charge at some point in the afternoon. But at least with the S22 Ultra, you will have the ability to quick charge much faster, that being with about maybe an hour of quick charging time with a 45 watt charger. On the Pixel 7 Pro, it's gonna take about an hour and 45 minutes or so to charge this up completely from dead. So I would give the edge to the S22 Ultra in battery life, just because of that faster charging speeds, because they may die around the same time, and with the faster charging speeds, you'll be up and running much quicker. And then both of them also have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. So at the end of the day, which one should you go out and get? The S22 Ultra or the Pixel 7 Pro? This is probably one of the toughest decisions I've had to make this year between two devices, because usually I feel like I have a clear-cut winner, but I find both devices to be really good in their own respective ways. So the S22 Ultra obviously wins in the customization in the software and in the hardware, but the Pixel 7 Pro wins in the AI stuff, which it can be very convenient for a more basic person. And in my more basic lifestyle, which I like to say I'm building a very simple and basic lifestyle, even though my life revolves around tech, I feel like sometimes you just want a phone that can be reliable and works and is simple to use, and that's the Pixel 7 Pro. But sometimes you also want something that gives you the freedom, the customization features where you can just mess around. You could literally spend hours just playing with the different settings in here. And that's the S22 Ultra. Think about which one is more of you, which lifestyle is more of you, and go that way. But I think whichever one you pick, you're going to be satisfied, honestly. But either way, I hope this helped. It was pretty tough for me to decide. I still don't know. You know what? If I had to snatch one out, throw one out right away, and just stay with one, I'm staying with the Pixel 7 Pro. I just feel like I'd be happier with this for some reason. So my gut tells me go for the Pixel 7 Pro. So that's what I'm picking because it matches my shirt. No, I'm kidding. That's not why. But I feel like this is the phone I'd be happier with in my day-to-day. So this is the one I would personally pick. But whichever one you pick, I definitely think you'll be happy with. But hopefully, like I said, this helped. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And peace.